Take 6.
Saudi official rules out changing laws to introduce alcohol. Asked in a panel session about Saudi Arabia at the World Economic Forum on the possibility of offering alcohol in its new destinations such as NEOM, Assistant Minister of Tourism, Princess Haifa Bint Mohammed said, quote, Saudi Arabia has been very transparent on where it stands on everything. We were very clear, and we even heard it from our head of state on where we stood on serving alcohol, unquote. Let's go back. Let's just continue that quote. The short answer is that we're going to continue with our current laws, unquote. She pointed out that the kingdom is, quote, doing very well when it comes to attracting tourists and opening the country for visitors from around the world. And finally, she added, we have been outperforming globally in tourism with what we currently have to offer today. There's a lot to go around without introducing anything new, unquote.
Yeah, there's a lot that's interesting in this answer from Princess Haifa. First, she uses the term head of state here instead of mentioning King Salman by name. We could put our Kremlinology hats on and parse the meaning there, but that phrasing is very interesting. Second, she says in her answer, she says the short answer is that we're going to continue with our current laws. So there's a longer answer that may or may not have a little bit more complexity to it in this. I don't think there's an upside, Richard, at all of announcing a decision right now to allow alcohol or not before these resorts and destinations are fully open. I mean, why do that? It only invites criticism, speculation, blowback, and maybe there isn't a plan either way in place. In my opinion, I think, and in the opinion of virtually everyone that I have talked to about visiting Saudi Arabia, hypothetically, I think for Saudi tourism, at least for resorts, to really work, to really reach its full potential of attracting visitors, you got to figure out a way to serve alcohol. And that's my opinion. That isn't the opinion of anybody, else. But we've talked about this before, Richard. Saudi Arabia doesn't want to be Las Vegas, but like it or not, tourists will choose to visit a similar place, either in the region like Dubai or around the world where alcohol is served. And it's, not just the party tourism senior frogs crowd. Some of these are extremely high end resorts aiming to attract big dollars from big spenders. Those folks are going to want to drink a little bit of wine with their $80 steak. So Saudi Arabia is going to do what it's going to do. And if I had to guess, I would bet they eventually find a way to allow it somehow. But again, I don't know that for sure, but tourists have choices on where they go, and they will lose a lot of them by not offering what other places offer.
That's an interesting point, and I'm not sure where they'll land, but I absolutely agree with you. There's no point in announcing anything at this point. They hit 62 million visitors this year, and they're on their way to 100 million. Obviously, most of those, the vast majority of those, were domestic. But you wonder too, on the flip side, that as a devil's advocate, is maybe if they're discovering that the things they're offering, which are essentially cultural tourism or adventure tourism, might be sufficient to attract the numbers that they want. Mm-hmm. And it'll be interesting where this ends up. I also think it's interesting that she sort of slapped this down. You may recall that recently the tourism sector head for NEOM suggested that NEOM was going to have its own special status and distinguish it from others. That was slapped down. Mm-hmm. You've got you had essentially someone saying from the government saying that NEOM will be completely under Saudi Arabia's sovereignty and regulations. Now that doesn't, it's a little bit of, there's wiggle room in there, those Saudi and regulations, but mm-hmm. They're keeping a firm hand on things at the moment, and I think they have to, because as we've talked about before, they have domestic constituencies. They have very significant conservative constituencies that they need to be sensitive to, and they need to be responsive to. So, like you say, and I think you put your finger on it, there's no point in getting out ahead of this. If at some point in these hyper luxury areas, luxury resorts, if you can have alcohol in the hotel, which the Emirates did for many years and does. Maybe you do that, but no hurry to get there, especially when you're just straight tourism numbers are improving and really going up strong.
Yeah, the time to make a decision is not now. And they're not going to be pressured one way or another on this. They're going to, do what they want to do. I think that market pressures at some point. I mean, their tourism sector is in a great spot right now. And as you mentioned, and as Princess Haifa mentioned in her comments, one of the top globally in terms of rebounding after the pandemic. Why? Because many people are vaccinated. They were really good about that. Their pandemic restrictions and all the efforts to mitigate the pandemic in Saudi Arabia really worked, which we've discussed about a lot on the show. And also, the economy is starting to hum again. Oil prices are up. People are visiting Saudi Arabia. But again, like a lot of these resort destinations that are planned are not done. NEOM is just getting started and being built. The Red Sea will be open in a year or two. So no rush to make a decision now. So I thought her answer was very good. And again, this is not, frankly, it's the type of thing when they announce it, they'll make some announcement and we'll say, yeah, I knew it. But I mean, in the moment, we'll say we knew that they were kind of hedging, delaying a little bit, but they may not do that. They may say, look, we don't really want that here. And, our culture is different. If you want to visit a place that's actually different, this is different. There is no alcohol. If you can still have fun without it, then come visit. But it's interesting. I get this question a lot. I mean, this is something Americans know about Saudi Arabia. So,
it may not be the spot if you want to go, sun on the beach and have a margarita, but again, it's off to the future. No reason to answer it. They're doing pretty well otherwise. And like you say, the hyper luxury stuff and the luxury resorts aren't in place yet.
Right.